Try to ride on the high of the days unknown. Memories filling me with the trace of hope unknown. When everything's impaired and no one seems to care, I know I cannot rise above. I'm just looking for love inside this dark room with all these shadows that I know. I need a place to run. I'm alone, just looking for love. I'm alone, just looking for love. Looking for love. I'm alone, just looking for
At Rose 2017, at Gerda. Just hours after Amazon confirmed his ouster from the hit show Transparent over accusations of sexual harassment, actor Jeffrey Tambor seems to have been erased from the promotional movie posters. At CNN, Doctor Who tweeted Florida school shooting victims, when is it going to stop?
In the United States, we represent 4.5% of the world's population. Yet we own 50% of the private guns in the world. And of those guns, 50% of them are owned by 3% of our population. There have been more deaths in the United States since 1968 at the expense of a gun than all the deaths that have ever been committed against our soldiers in the act of war. Let that sink in. More deaths by gun violence in our country than at war since our founding. So we have to do something, and there is bipartisan support. There is bipartisan support for background checks, for no-fly list for those that are not able to purchase guns that are on the no-fly list. There is support for eliminating assault weapons. There is support for putting limitations on high-capacity magazines. And we need to stand up to the NRA by getting together and working to offset the dark money they are bringing into election after election so that we can get common sense gun control passed in this country.
you like it. It's good for you.
It's good for you.
At Olympics. Baby goat with a goat. Winter Olympics.
It's good for you.
It's good for you.
At Real Donald Trump. Cannot believe how badly DACA recipients have been treated by the Democrats, totally abandoned. Republicans are still working hard. Charter schools spend taxpayer money wisely. And it sure pays off. At Adam Parkomenko, at Jenny Wilsonu, I don't want to hear anyone talk about a 50-state strategy and then say Democrats shouldn't compete in Utah. You have a candidate, 5th generation Utah. There is lots of time between now and November. At Jenny Wilsonut is doing her part. Don't you leave her hanging. Patch gave up. California billionaire Tom Steyer has pledged to spend $40 million in a national campaign to impeach President Trump, and his latest broadside. At Jules Sue, sometimes I show my dog pictures of other dogs on my phone.
Again, remain calm and wait for further instructions from authorities.
Speaker Ryan said in a press release on Friday that he couldn't be happier that Mitt Romney announced he will run for the Utah Senate seat. At B52 Malmud. For they feel and we resist, we insist, we persist, we vote, we call out, we march, we endure, we know truth prevails. This dark time of Trump fuckery will end. We will tell our kids, our grandkids what we did to save the Republic. At Conserva Musa, thanks to Dwightler and Budwaz is working overtime to marginalize and censor conservative voices. Matim known foreign forwards is buying Grushy and Bot. At Politics. Democratic Rep. Barbara Lee calls for common sense gun control legislation if Speaker Ryan would bring up some of these bills. I know they could get passed.
And the time is now. We know that 80% of the public supports common sense gun control and gun safety measures. For example, background checks. I know last year we had over 190 co-sponsors on that legislation. If Speaker Ryan would bring up some of these bills, I know they could get passed. Yes, the NRA really has a lot of control, and we need to put the lives of our children and of the 30,000 of the Americans and people in our country who have been lost to gun violence. We need to put them first, not the NRA.
And perhaps in a bipartisan way, what exactly would tackling this issue mean? Would it mean in terms of age restrictions, access to certain guns, the banning of certain weapons? What is most realistic and within grasp in your view?
Well, in my view, I think that, and we know for a fact that background checks, legislation for background checks has bipartisan support. The assault weapons ban, I'm sure we can build some more support for that. We had an assault weapons ban until several years ago.
Like millions of other people, you own a small business. You sell poke bowls, or artisan vegan cupcakes, or interesting wooden artwork, just like millions of other people.
The deadly attachment, which mimics an automatic weapon, is coming under new scrutiny in the wake of the Las Vegas shooting.
From the sea of sameness. Make your business stand out.
At Mahal Sulami.
Website. Make it Squarespace. Start your free trial today and use offer code
At B52 Malmut.
10%.
Blue Wave 2018 is building now, will come crashing to the shore of Congress November 6, 2018. Say bye to the traitors who voted themselves tax breaks, sided with dark money donors and threw disabled people under the bus. Bye to the bums who send prayers but take gun money. Flip it.
Look around, look at them, baby, look at you. And you're mine.
At Joy Show. Ronan Farrow's report Donald Trump, a Playboy model, and a system for concealing infidelity. One woman's account of the clandestine meetings, financial transactions, and legal pacts that hid the future president's extramarital affairs. At Top Stories. Look for Apple's upcoming buybacks, services and China business to Volta stock, says analyst. At Julian Assange, at The Intercept. James Risen is a good writer. I do not appreciate his Tumblrification in just 4 months, at The Intercept. There is a body of evidence showing intelligence agencies hacking politicians, and a clinical hard news article could and should have been produced. The glassy building has caused some headaches, to say the least.
Out of time, out of space, out of in-betweens. Take it slow.
At Telestrifuge 2. Mitt Romney makes it official Utah Senate candidate.
Let him go. They say times are
At Adam Baldwin, at Brett Stephens need to repeal the Second Amendment. Donald Trump will likely get one more Supreme Court nomination, or 2 or 3, before he leaves office. At Brett Stephens need. It sounds like political mission impossible, but it is the only meaningful way to stop the killing.
I'm going to bet that as soon as he steps in, we see more menu items, we see breakfast, and we start to see a lot of organization. I think he's going to turn it around.
getting closer now. Turn me on, getting closer now. This is it, this is us, getting closer now. When you call my name. Can't slow down, we're moving now against everything. When you call my name, I'm spinning round, lost in your sound, can't hear a thing. When you call my name, I can't slow down, we're moving
Overnight, a billboard popped up alongside a busy highway in California, where Hispanic GOP candidate Omar Navarro is challenging Maxine Waters for her seat in the U.S. Congress. Waters began to panic when she saw the large sign because 4 words exposed her dirty secret to many of the same constituents who have been voting for her for years. On Thursday, Omar Navarro shared a photo on Facebook which had his supporters cheering and his opponents, most of whom are longtime fans of Rep. Maxine Waters, in a state of panic. Navarro, who is just 29 years old, is challenging Waters for her seat in the U.S. Congress. Navarro's photo depicted a billboard which has been erected along a busy California highway. Maxine Waters' ugly mug is plastered across the left side of the massive sign, And on the right side, the message to voters is loud and clear, rotten to the core. Adjacent to Waters' face on the right side of the billboard is a picture of an old apple core which has begun to rot, much the same way the Congresswoman has after years and years on Capitol Hill. The sign also states that Waters has been named most corrupt by CREW 5 times. Indeed, Maxine Waters' corruption has been well documented, although it hasn't stopped her from winning re-election in California, where Democratic politicians are the ruling class.
On calls on air on the top surge of juvenile executions, News DW 16.2018.
Disbursements revealed that the California Congresswoman paid more than $10,000 for tickets to the Broadway show Hamilton and wrote it off as a fundraiser expense. Of course, this is the sort of thing which should induce calls for term limits, but in communist California, corruption is a way of life for politicians. The California billboard which calls Waters out for her dirty deeds appears to have been funded by the Stars and Stripes Forever PAC, a grassroots super PAC launched in 2013 with the goal of appealing to African American voters with a conservative message. 2018 represents the greatest opportunity in our lifetime to enact a truly conservative agenda for America, states the PAC's website. Our goal is to help the GOP win a 61-seat majority in the Senate, enough to overcome any Democratic filibuster. The website continues, obtaining a filibuster-proof majority is crucial
Google
to
Chrome ad
confirming
blocker has already
conservative
changed the
judges
WebWire.
and rolling back regulations and legislation that cripples our economy, adds the website. We remain committed to our strategy of directed outreach to African American voters. The PAC writes,
Us
by
blame Russia for not
placing black
witness cyber
radio
attack.
ads
News
in key
DW
states such as
15.2018.
Indiana, Michigan, Missouri, Montana, North Dakota, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Wisconsin, we aim to affect the outcome of those senatorial races. The website goes on. If we're able to win 9 of the 25 seats now held by Democrats, we can accomplish our mission. It says, moreover, our long-term goal is to win 1/3 of the African American vote on a regular basis. Maxine Waters has done absolutely nothing for the black community, despite her many years in Congress. In fact, President Donald Trump has done more for African Americans in this country in just the first year of his presidency than Waters has in her entire career. This was evidenced by the most recent jobs report, which showed that black unemployment has reached the lowest numbers ever recorded, proof positive that a conservative agenda is far better for the black community than the Democratic standard of trading votes for freebies. Despite the tremendous work that President Donald Trump is doing for African Americans in the U.S., Maxine Waters has been leading the charge to impeach Trump, as he is a huge threat to her. Omar Navarro, on the other hand,
Wollongong
supports
party pressure.
President Trump
South
and his
African
agenda.
President Jacob
The right
Zuma resigns.
choice is
24.
overwhelmingly clear for California voters this election season.
Barack and Michelle Obama portraits unveiled in Washington. News DW 12.2018.
Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov claims U.S. special forces are illegally operating in Syria. In an exclusive interview with Euronews, he said the soldiers are there to support the Kurds. It comes amid reports of Russian mercenaries being killed by U.S. special forces in Syria.
Они последовательно в течение, наверное,
They've been there consistently for 2 or 3 years, almost for the whole period that the Washington-led coalition has been working in Syria.
In Syria's tangled conflict,
And all this
a
time,
kind of regional
US
war has
special
already
forces
Syria
and other
deeply.
units are in Syria on the ground, illegally, without any invitation from Damascus or any mandate from the UN Security Council.
Без какого-либо мандата Совета Безопасности ООН.
Lavrov said the US forces show no sign of leaving.
Понятно. Наверное, у Соединенных Штатов есть какая-то стратегия.
It's clear that the US probably has such a strategy to settle in Syria forever with its armed forces, just as they want to do in Iraq and Afghanistan, despite all the promises made. And so, when they settle forever in Syria, what they're doing now already, and despite all the promises, they're isolating a huge piece of the Syrian territory, an infringement of the sovereignty of the Syrian Arab Republic. And they're creating some kind of quasi-local authority, and in every possible way trying to create there an autonomous unit with the support of the Kurds.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly insisted that combat operations in Syria are winding down. However, Western agencies believe hundreds of Russian mercenaries are fighting there.
Welcome to Breaking News Today. The like button, and if you're new, make sure they hit that subscribe button down below and turn on my posts.
Ever since President
How
Trump
the
took
escalation
office,
zones in Syria became a
Democrats
war
have been
management
attempting
strategy.
to
Syria
find all
deeply.
the possible avenues in which to stop Donald's agenda in its tracks. Chuck Schumer especially has been leading the charge in the Senate, and needless to say, he's been a thorn in Trump's side. Schumer thought that he had the president right where he wanted him a few weeks ago during the first government shutdown. Chuck believed that by forcing the shutdown and using rhetoric to
story
tell
of
the
KFR Noble
American
Hospital,
people
41
that the
minutes of
shutdown was
Syria
Trump's
deeply.
fault, he could simultaneously end the shutdown, get his amnesty bill turned into law, and defeat Donald. But that didn't happen, did it? In fact, Schumer came out of the shutdown with his tail tucked between his
Weather
legs.
forecast world M% local weather report online Sky News.
The shutdown was corrected, and he was the one to blame for the shutdown in the first place. Now, Chuck Schumer has had to admit defeat for a second time to President Trump. This time it has to do with a presidential nominee that Schumer was blocking for political purposes. The Daily Caller reports on this Trump victory for the American way. The Senate confirmed the nation's top railroad safety administrator Tuesday after a number of Amtrak crashes increased pressure on Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who had repeatedly blocked
No light
the
at the end of a
confirmation
tunnel in
in an
eastern
admitted
Ghouta
effort
Sparrow,
to
Syria
secure
deeply.
federal funding to revamp a rail tunnel linking New York and New Jersey. That's just about as convoluted as it comes. We are to understand that Chuck
Lama do my spider thing. Insanity, it's utter insanity out there. Whoa. Now that's spicy. The downing of an Israeli warplane on Saturday threatened to escalate tensions between Israel and Iran. But now the two adversaries are actively trying to avoid a full-blown confrontation, writes Israeli security and intelligence commentator Yossi Mulman. Yahoo Mail free hash email with 1000 GB of storage. Whoa. Now that's spicy. Connect all of your accounts, easily share photos and animated GIFs, and get 1000 GB of free storage. Crazy people. Crazy people everywhere. Despite the de-escalation deal, a ban on humanitarian aid in eastern Ghouta, where 94% of besieged civilians in Syria reside, has created a man-made disaster, writes Syria expert Aaron Lund. Our approaching winter of discontent bar zero edge. Whoa. The Intercept has published a disingenuous and sloppy character assassination against Julian Assange. Gold gains as slew of Irish factors including firming inflation and the fall in retail sales and industrial production hit the dollar. Stagflation looks is a major breakout on the way for gold and precious metals bulls. Authored by Charles Hugh Smith via Off-Woman's blog. The tragedy is so fueled when the collapse is predictably inevitable, but not yet manifesting in daily life. Found the juicy. Amid unprecedented pressures on healthcare facilities in eastern Ghouta, and the repeated failure to deliver life-saving aid, time is running out to improve the humanitarian situation and mitigate misery in the Damascus suburb, says medical researcher Dr. Anis Barrow. Yahoo Mail free hash email with 1000 GB of storage. Wait. You need to hear this. Connect all of your accounts, easily share photos and animated GIFs, and get 1000 GB of free storage. At Adam Sawyer. In all the examples that feature photos of real-life abuse, the perpetrator is a white man. Before Nicholas Cruz carried out his mass killing at a Florida high school this week, police responded to his home 39 times over a 7-year period. At Proud Resistor, at San Fontaine. Important reminder: at San Fontaine and 22 Democrats reintroduced a bill to ban military-style assault weapons and high-capacity ammunition magazines last year. Democrats are on the right side of history on the gun violence issue. Vote accordingly on November 6, 2018. At Jordan Turson. Why watch Kathy Newman act the clown in an expensive studio when you can get Sam Harris vs Jordan Peterson on your phone? It was while I was watching Channel 4 News presenter Kathy Newman's spectacularly disastrous interview with University of Toronto Professor Joe. At American Newsroom, at Wilhelm, at Senator Team Scott. Watch at Wilhelm or at Senator Team Scott on the shooting in Parkland, Florida.
slang. I hold back, sometimes I won't. Yeah. I feel good, sometimes I don't. Hey. I finesse down Western Road. Hey. Next. Might go down to G.O.D. Yeah. Wait. I go hard on Southside G. Yeah. Wait. I make sure that Northside E. And still.
Say what you say. Thank God for what's happening right now. It might not be good, but thank God. I do.
They wish and I wish and I wish and I wish and they wish on me. Yeah. I've been moving calm, don't start no trouble with me. Trying to keep it peaceful is a struggle for me. Don't pull up at 6 a.m. to cuddle with me. You know how I like it when you loving on me. I don't wanna die for them to miss me. Yes, I see the
At Fortune, Paul makes an observation. At George Webb, I picked my 15-year-old Ukraine supermodel from a book. We made love the next day. They were able to save the egg a month later. Thank God they had a dentist chair on the island. They found a donor on Hollywood Beach. I see my Magnitsky now once a year, but I can only wave. In the wake of Wednesday's Parkland, Florida school shooting, Russian bots have taken to Twitter to stoke a gun control debate.
They spoiled, got no patience for Nazis. I think they're better off dead. Now fighting hatred with hatred, making the hate more intense. I don't want nothing to do with either side of the fence, so don't blindly attack me for wearing braids on my head. Hate the people who believe you put yourselves in the ghetto. Hate the ones who teach their children you ain't cause they said so. Hate the ones who think you're all the same and judge you profusely cause the way that you're portrayed on our news and in movies. Being white and being racist aren't the same, man, I promise. No, it's hard to tell the difference if I'm just being honest. I deserve the chance to show you I'm not part of the problem, and you owe it to yourselves. We got so much in common.
White boy, don't say that. White boy, oh you so bad. White boy, you wish you were black. White boy, dear white boy. White boy, white, no say, you can't say we're white boys. White boys, white lies. Don't tell me how to see it through my white eyes. White boy, don't say that. White boy, oh you so bad. White boy, you wish you were black. White boy, dear white boy.
At Thomas 1774 Payne. Deputy of Homeland Security slams NBC for fake news. A top official with the Department of Homeland Security issued a scathing statement this week, excoriating NBC News for misrepresenting comments she had made to the network in an interview last week. At Ab Buzzard, at State Expo. The at State Expo's Heather Neuert says she would be very surprised if there weren't sanctions in the future when asked about Turkey SS-400 missiles purchased from Russia.
We don't want to upset Turkey right now, so that's okay.
Well, remember, when we go back to one of the NATO agreements or pledges, perhaps I'm using the wrong word here, but is that systems purchased by NATO members, have to be interoperable. My understanding is that S-400s do not meet that standard. So because of that, we would oppose the purchase of that. But I don't know what the status is of any proposed purchase. But in terms of your question, I mean, it would just be a hypothetical. I don't know that we have a particular deal that we have spotted and said, you know what, that doesn't meet the threshold, let's let it pass. This is all still fresh, a fresh piece of law, a fresh, that we started to be able to impose and implement, and our people are still going through all this stuff. So I would anticipate, though, and as you know, we don't forecast sanctions, but I would be very surprised if there weren't sanctions in the future. Okay, all right.
At Dalai Lama. Genuine friends are attracted by a warm heart, not money, not power. A genuine friend considers you as just another human being, as a brother or sister, and shows affection on that level, regardless of whether you are rich or poor, or in a high position. That is a genuine friend. At Antonio Kaffer. Please stop the ridiculous debate that gun enthusiasts would think differently about gun reform if it were black and brown bodies holding up those AR-15s. I regularly post pictures like a 1 below M% get positive reactions from all races. Stop this fake racism argument. How many of you see the hypocritical style of these career politicians? At Clinton 614. How to stop mass school shootings. Close down all public schools. There ain't nothing but liberal agenda brainwashing factories ever since prayer, God and guns were removed they went to hell. In fact everything a liberal touches goes to hell. MAGA Florida. At Folks and Friends, at Diamond and Silk, guns don't shoot themselves.
You can be disrespectful.
It is person behind the trigger that we need to focus
on. And now look, this is what happened.
That's right.
We have to get back to the basics. Compassion, empathy, and regards for human life. And that's taught at an early age.
And also recognize that guns don't shoot itself. It's about what's going on in the minds of the person behind the trigger.
That's right.
At Coolcom 101. People trying to watch Drake's new Goddess Plan music video live.
That's a very bad idea. That's a very bad idea. That's a very bad idea.
Tausend unbegleitete minderjährige Ausländer leben derzeit in Deutschland. Ihre Unterbringung und Betreuung kostet allein in diesem Jahr rund 3,95 Milliarden Euro. Dass diese Zahl sinkt, ist eher unwahrscheinlich, denn im vergangenen Jahr wurde nicht ein unbegleiteter Minderjähriger abgeschoben. Das geht aus einer Antwort der Bundesregierung auf eine kleine Anfrage der Linkspartei hervor. Um das zu ändern, fordert CDU-Politiker Michael Kretschmer die Überprüfung der Handys, um so die Eltern der Kinder ausfindig zu machen. Eine Abschiebung ist nämlich nur dann möglich, wenn der Minderjährige an einen Erziehungsberechtigten oder eine geeignete Aufnahmeeinrichtung übergeben werden kann.
At Funder. Oh boy, it is a new Trump sex scandal. He cheated on Melania with at least 2 women in 2006 alone, as noted in story below. America deserves someone who is not a liar and a cheater. What a pathetic disgrace. Trump resign. One woman's account of the clandestine meetings, financial transactions, and legal pacts that hid the future president's extramarital affairs. At Warren, at Marco Rubio, at Harris-Averse, Marco, your hands are stained with blood, and your fingers are stained with sin. You speak lies, and you mutter wicked things. Isaiah 5:9-3. At Magic Poop Cannon. What I say about my charts. D. At Radio Freedom, at J Costas High, at Joe and this thread is gonna leave a mark. A lot of them. At Mist Cole. Here is a 5-step plan to kick lawmakers out of office who are owned by the gun lobby. Throw them out. Common sense does not have a right or left. Join us. Gun control, no gun sense, no gun sense, evitor gun sense, you're out. At Piagra. Heroes welcome. Gun control power plan. The 19-year-old accused of gunning down 17 people at his former school on Wednesday told police he carried out the rampage, according to Probab. At Gateway Pundit. Florida police called the mass murderer Nicholas Cruz's home more than 30 times. Florida police reportedly were called to Nicholas Cruz's home more than 35 times. At least one time police were called because Nicholas was fighting with his mother.
Whatever the American people want, I think what we really need is a multifaceted attack, as I said earlier, because regardless, we can't just test out one system and if it doesn't work, blame the other side. That's only going to divide us more than we already are. We need to do both things at the same time and become true Americans and not political parties.
David Hogg, you are a survivor of the Stoneman Douglas massacre, but you're also a journalist, and you're my peer, and hopefully one day you'll be a colleague. Thank you very much for coming by. We appreciate it. There you have it, Anne-Marie. Very strong words for a young man, only 17 years old, who lived through something that you and I couldn't...
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, you can. Sorry.
To the American public, when you ask what you can do, I personally don't care what your opinion is on this situation, whether you think it's mental health care that needs to be reformed or gun reform. Whatever it is, speak out for it. Go to your congressman today. Write a letter to them. Call them. That's how we're going to prevent the next mass tragedy. Because right now, if we get accustomed to it, nothing's going to change. More children are going to die, and with those children, so will our future.
At Betamidler, at Senate Major School. Fuck you ampersand your worthless thoughts and prayers, you ampersand your obfuscating shills got what you wanted. Dollar, while our kids get to die in school. San Ted Cruz, Texas, on Thursday fired back after a CNN graphic accused him of being afraid to appear on the network, noting the town hall debates in which he has participated over the past year. At Jack Pasovic. Gun owner poll: have you ever legally purchased a firearm in the US without a background check? Judge Emmett G. Sullivan knows a cover-up when he sees one.
We're a pretty good barometer for the economy because we see it on just about every segment of the economy, whether it's the industrial side or the services side. So right now we're seeing a very good economy. We grew our revenue by 6% last year, over 6% organically. in a 2 to 3% economy. So we like the economy. We like what tax reform's done for us so far. So we're happy with what we saw in 17 and going into 18.
What was your tax rate before tax reform?
Before it was 36% last year, just slightly north of 36, and now it's going to be
stated tax reform. What people don't believe that. I have people tweeting that we let corporations lie because none of them really pay. And they don't understand that there are multinationals that have facilities over there, so the blended rate is lower, but you can't just hire an accountant and get to 24% before tax.
Yeah, we paid a little over 36% last year, and we're going to pay about 26%. So not quite the statutory decrease of 14.
What are you going to do with what flows to there will be more flow to the bottom line?
Well, yeah. So the benefit to us was about $275 million, and we're not just. That was the central question, really. Do companies just give it back to shareholders through share repurchase? We gave about $70 million back to employees through a bonus, and then we're spending an extra $150 by accelerating some spending on trucks and some IT spend. So about 3/4 to 80% of it's going to go back into the economy, and then I think it'll benefit shareholders on the back end of the cycle.
Yeah, but I just hear things. So then you're buying trucks, so then they got, the manufacturers of trucks have employees. It just seems like if there's 1,000 waste management, big and
German
small,
Film Festival Berlin
like
M% Beyond kicks off in San Francisco. Film DW 092.2018.
Additive to growth.
The intended consequences. I think that people worry about the unintended consequences. These are the intended consequences. And do you see, everyone's worried about wage inflation.
Right.
But you have the corporate tax rate coming down, so it's not exactly a headwind. It would actually still be a tailwind when we get confused about watching these one-offs or maybe a trend of higher wages, but this had to come, and it's still a benefit for your company.
I think we've seen wage inflation in some of these trade-type jobs for several years, and we address it on a market-by-market, job-by-job basis.
I'm just curious because we've had some big announcements about recycling from major companies lately.
Right.
So yes, these are long-term initiatives, but it does seem like there's momentum all of a sudden to try to do something about waste. Is that a challenge for you guys, or how do you figure it fit into that?
Recycling is probably the only segment of our business that's not hitting on all 12 cylinders going into 18. And part of it is because of the contamination requirements coming from China. Contamination basically meaning that there's trash in the recycle stream, and so we've got a real battle on that at our recycle facilities. You look at a plant that's got, some of our plants have 40% of what comes in the front door being trash, and we've got to take that trash out. Nobody wants trash in the recycle stream. That's really the big challenge there, but I think the rest of the business is humming along.
And wasn't there also exposure to commodity? So what you get for things that you sell out on the open market?
Yeah, I mean, China, first of all, right now is their slow time, so it's not coincidence that they're doing this during their slow time, but and so as a result, commodity prices have come down a bit. We think they'll return to more normalized levels later in the year, but yeah, a piece of it has been commodity prices.
Your predecessor lessened your exposure to waste energy and to some of the recycling stuff. It didn't make economic sense, right? I mean, it's nice, sounds good, but with natural gas,
Trump cabinet officials in ethics scandals.
Economically, in an economically profitable way.
I think that's right. I mean, we've really focused on the core. We've divested some things that were kind of off the middle of the fairway a little bit. So
is that true for recycling still? So
Why Syria and the U.S. clashed for control east of the Euphrates, Syria deeply.
This stuff, I mean, is that going to cost them a lot more? Who does that cost? I mean, where does that cost? How does it flow through the system?
Well, right now, the beneficiary tend to be the buyers of those materials on the back end, and China is a big buyer. They buy 30% of our materials that come out of our recycle plants. And the cost ultimately is borne by us right now. But at some point, we've got to make sure that that cost, which is largely as a result of that trash coming into the system, is eliminated so that we don't have higher operating costs at our plant.
Oh, that sounds like, I mean, already I go to whether it's a Chipotle or something, and it's like landfill, recycling, and then everyone has them all confused, and I don't know where to put the liquid and what kind. And it sounds like it's going to be a bigger, if you're going to start charging them for all that food waste going into the recycling, they're going to make me, you know, they're going to be extra sure that there's no contamination.
Well, some people are like you, who are really trying to do the right thing and just simply can't figure out does this plastic item go in the recycle bin or not. Some people literally put trash in their recycle bin, and we've got to take care of both.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC.
Berlinale opening Wes Anderson as I Love Dogs is a Japanophile feast film DW15 2.2018.
On any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.
Which Europeans have the most precarious jobs? Zero Hedge.
Hello and welcome. I'm Antonina Antosha and you are watching Head to Head on UATV. At the end of the week, we're summarizing the IMF mission work in Ukraine and Prime Minister Volodymyr Groysman's governmental report on 2017 major achievements and 2018 goals. And we're welcoming in our studio
World News Breaking International News and Headlines Sky News
Advisory Group for supporting Ukrainian reform with the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. Hello, Pavlo, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So, as I have already mentioned, the IMF mission has been completed, and now we're waiting for the results. How long do we have to wait, and do we have the first results we could already talk about?
Well, we have to understand
Adam Schiff, Kenty's top line, Alex Jones, Info Hours, there is a run for your mind.
So a bunch of technical people coming in, assessing what has happened in the country, so conducting some kind of negotiation, some talks with the government, but this is not the mission that will come and finalize the review and sign off on the tranche.
So it's kind of like a mission in between.
Yes, it's kind of a technical experts coming in, evaluating what has happened,
the progress, not the results, right?
Right. So it's more, yes, it's kind of technical level. We shouldn't expect really something big bang news from Washington after this. But what we can expect is that they will be able to take back to the U.S., to the headquarters of the IMF, the information on what is the current situation in Ukraine with respect to the reforms that are the conditions of the IMF.
If I'm correct, the main reforms they were studying is the anti-corruption reform, and they were also reviewing the gas prices.
Well, the anti-corruption court and the gas prices are the two kind of big issues remaining, two big remaining conditions for the
Why are white men more likely to carry out mass shootings?
But also the privatization law has been recently passed, which was also one of the conditions, and this is also what the mission obviously has to evaluate. The pension reform has been passed for some time now, but there were some kind of minor issues remaining on the table, so the resolution of these issues will also be evaluated. So, yes, the anti-corruption court and the gas tariffs are, I guess, the main issues, but there are also some
additional issues. Since this is a technical mission, does this mission actually have the right to come up with a decision whether Ukraine is going to get another tranche from the IMF or not? Or do we wait for another official mission?
No, I wouldn't expect this mission to have the mandate to come up with such a thing, but they are the ones gathering the information upon which official decisions will then be taken. So it's kind of a fact-finding upon which then the decision-making will be done.
Still, how are we looking so far? How's Ukraine looking so far? Eligible?
We shall see. I mean, I would be very careful, with commenting instead of the fund itself. But, at least for my opinion, is that Ukraine doesn't really, neither Ukraine nor the fund does really have an alternative. The freezing up the program going off track is really bad for everyone. So I really
for both
hope
sides
that,
of the treaty, right?
yes, to literally to everyone. So this is very risky for the country. This is risky for the fund. It will risk losing all the achievements that have been done in the last few years within the IMF program, simply because at the last moment the macroeconomic situation will break down. So hopefully both sides will be able to resolve it and to do the reforms necessary for the IMF to continue with the program, and at the same time for those reforms to be kind of
now you could order a segment from your living room wired.
Okay, speaking of the economic situation, in his report, the Prime
Zimbabwe's
Minister
leading
of Ukraine,
opposition
Volodymyr
leader Strange
Groysman, stated
at 65.
that among the goals for 2018, there is GDP growth.
Tracking. The internet really creeps me out sometimes. Food Group Danone eyes further sales and profit growth for 2018. Hold up, this is really interesting. Food Group Danone said on Friday it would focus on accelerating sales growth this year and deliver a further rise in profits, thanks to cost cuts and the benefits from its acquisition of U.S. organic food group White Wave. Danone, the world's largest yogurt maker, said it was targeting a double-digit rise in 2018 recurring earnings per share EPS at constant exchange rates, excluding the impact of the sale of a stake in Japan's Yakult announced this week. Danone achieved 14.2% EPS growth in 2017, in line with its guidance. In 2018, the company will progress toward its 2020 ambition through further sales growth and an improved recurring operating margin, it said in a statement. The company, alongside consumer goods peers such as Nestle and Unilever, is under investor pressure to improve results, and it needs to deliver on 2020 profit margin and sales growth targets, it said last year. How you could road race and win from your living room bar wired. Crazy people everywhere. Dave McGillivray is an improbable advocate of virtual exercise. The race director of a Boston Marathon for 30 years, McGillivray estimates he's logged more than 150,000 miles in his lifetime, the overwhelming majority of them outside, and a formidable number of those in Forrest Gumpian feats of endurance. In 1978, he ran from Medford, Oregon to Medford, Massachusetts, a distance of 3,452 miles for charity. In 2004, he did it again. And just this month, at the age of 63, he conquered the World Marathon Challenge by completing 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. It was a little bit of an insane thing to do, McGillivray says, but I was able to get through it okay. You might be surprised to learn that a man willing to commit to intercontinental travel in pursuit of multiple marathons also sits on the advisory board of a company that wants to make it possible for athletes to experience and even compete in races around the world, all from the comfort of their own treadmills. That company is Outside Interactive, the Massachusetts-based developer of an app called Virtual Runner. And no, this is not the cheesy, lo-fi run simulator you've seen on the ellipticals at your gym. OI's program synchronizes high-quality Steadicam footage of more than 60 scenic running routes and race courses from around the world with the speed and angle of a runner's treadmill. Users can run up and down Cadillac Mountain in Acadia National Park, jog up Heartbreak Hill on the Boston Marathon's 20th mile, skirt the coast of Cape Cod in the iconic Falmouth Road Race, or jog through Brooklyn's Prospect Park. Newer treadmills will communicate with the app and automatically adjust their incline to mirror the grade of the course, and if a user increases her speed, the video feed which users can view on a tablet or TV screen quickens to match it. The result is an experience that's more immersive, dynamic, and mercifully distracting than a traditional treadmill workout. I was throwing a Hail Mary pass to the future when I started developing this thing, says Outside Interactive CEO Gary McNamee, who first conceived of the Virtual Runner app before treadmills could communicate with tablets and laptops. Back then, he says, he wasn't trying to spin a company out of the idea, I was just trying to make treadmill running suck less. That's our internal motto. Making treadmill running suck less since 2011.